This is Mrs. Thompson. I'm not feeling great. It's Tuesday, but on Thursday I'm absent. So this is for the sub to play for you to look at in your notes, lesson 3.3. Now, there's a couple of things that are really hard to read in your notes. This is actually on page 178 in your textbook. So if you have a hard time reading this, please go to your textbook and write this down a little bigger or where you need to the side. And it says that the multiplication property of inequality is that we can multiply both sides of our inequality by the same thing and we get that same answer. The key thing is that when C is greater than 0, notice that the inequality stays the same. So the key thing is that when I look at multiplying by C greater than 0, the inequality, this part of it, if we are looking, stays exactly the same. The inequality is greater, it stays greater. The inequality is less, it stays less. You're just going to multiply and divide by that number where C is greater than. So we multiply both sides by 2. We still have, in this case, negative 4, going to be, if we are looking at that, less than 6. Now, you need to be really careful when we multiply by a negative number, and that's what it means when C is less than 0. It means that we start with an original equation and look what happens. It flips. Now, you're going to see this video that I'm going to put up in here. I think it's going to work to do a video within a video because it captures my screen. But the key thing to keep in mind is that when we multiply or divide by a negative, so it's the same thing down here when you multiply or divide by a negative number. When you multiply, so make sure you're writing this down, multiply or divide, so I'm going to put them both together, by a negative number, can be any negative number, can be an integer, can be a fraction, any negative number, we need to flip the inequality. Now, I may just attach this YouTube video so that you can watch it in your notes, but when you divide by a positive number, you don't have to worry about flipping it. And again, this is in your textbook. This is on page 180. So 180 and page 178. As you take a look at this first example, as you go down to problem 1, the opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide both sides by 3. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3. Our new equation, 3 over 3 cancels. X is less than negative 6. If x is less than negative 6, we have an open circle, and again we said we're going to put our arrow going above. Arrow goes in the exact same direction. How do you check this? You should be doing checks. What's a good number to check? Well, since it's divisible by 3, I'm going to pick a multiple of 3. I want to pick a multiple of 3 that is definitely less than negative 6. I don't want to pick negative 6. So I'm going to pick negative 9. If x is equal to negative 9, I go back to my original equation, not to the new one where I multiplied the original. Negative 9 divided by 3. Is that less than negative 2? Well, negative 3, is that less than, question mark, negative 2? Yes, it checks. You should do this one in your notes. Again, you're going to multiply on both sides. You're asked to graph the solution, and I would like to see, when I look at your notes, a check. So if the sub wants to pause the video right now, you guys are going to do this, and then just make sure you check with your shoulder partner. What happens when we multiply or divide by a negative number? Oh, I didn't have my video here. I will attach the video. It's a pretty decent one. It's talking about something getting flipped. So we're going to do this problem, but then I'm going to show you a video, and then you're going to do the got it problem. So it says negative 3/4 times w is greater or equal to 3. What we want to think about is, what do we want to multiply negative 3/4 times to get 1? So I have negative 3/4 times w. We're going to multiply on both sides by the negative 4/3, the reciprocal, because that's how we multiply. A number times its reciprocal gives us 1w. The original problem said greater or equal to 3. We need to multiply on this side by negative 4/3. Now, multiplying by negative 4/3, you should not even be pulling out your calculator for this, because all we simply want to do is look at what simplifies. And in this case, 3 over 3 is the same as 1. And 1 times negative 4 gives us negative 4. But this is where we're going to watch this video about baby gets flipped. When you multiply or divide by a negative number, we need to switch this around. So it was greater or equal, it is now going to be less than or equal. So here's a video. I also attached it to the daily planner. So this is from another teacher, so take a look, and I think it helps you to understand.
I like inequality, you cannot lie. You masters can't deny. If a number walks in with a negative sign and you've got to divide, you get flipped. I pull out a paper. I know you want to start. Deep inequality solving. Multiply and make them all. Big oh baby. Or I flip ya. That big side don't miss ya. My home was trying to warn me. So flip that inequality. To multiply or divide. Both sides by a negative sign. Keep everything true. You know what you gotta do. You get flipped.
All right, so as we look at our lesson, we want to do that same thing. Now, this looks like a negative n divided by 3. Now, one hint is that you can, this is the same as negative with the n out in front of 3 is the same as negative n over 3, but my hint would be put the negative with the number. So we're going to rewrite this as n divided by negative 3 is less than negative 1. What do you now need to multiply by on both sides to get just n by itself? So you're going to do this in class with the sub, check each other's notes. What happens when you divide by a positive power? So if we are taking a look at this next one of the things some of you struggled with was writing your equations. We want to think about this. A dog in our neighborhood, we're going to walk it after school. You earn $4.50 per hour. D is the number of dogs you're walking, and the question says how many dogs do you need to walk to earn $75? So the cost of walking the dog, we get $4.50 per dog, D, and we've got to get at least. Now, when we are talking about at least, remember the other day in class, what we talked about yesterday in class, is that at least is you have to be at least 18, right, to vote? At least 18 to vote. Which means, can you be 17 or 14 or 15? No. So greater or equal is at least. So in this case, we want to earn at least $75, greater or equal. What are we going to do to solve this? We're going to divide on both sides by 4.5. So then you're going to label your answer. D is greater or equal to how many dogs do we have to walk? Then you want to answer the question. So how many dogs do you have to walk? I have to walk when you divided 75 by 4.5, D came out to be 16.6 repeating. Doesn't make sense. How many dogs do you have to watch? What is 16 2/3 of a dog? I have to walk 17 dogs, right? Because we can't walk, that wouldn't, if we just did 16, that wouldn't get us to 75. I need to watch 17 dogs to make $75. Top of that next screen, it says a student club plans to work a food kitchen. Case of vegetables costs $10.68. The club spends $50 for the project. What are the possible number of cases that they could buy? So, again, some of you were just explaining to me how to get that answer. We're going to go $10.68 times the case. C, that's what we don't know. And it says we want to get at most $50. Remember, at most, when you think of at most, you have to be at most 12 years old to get a free kids menu or eat off the kids menu. At most 12 years, which means could you be 10? Yes. Could you be 5? Yes. Remember, this is going to be less or equal to 12, not greater or equal. So we're going to put less or equal to $50. What do we have to do to solve? Well, it's nice. We're going to divide by 10.68. Don't have to switch our inequality, not flipping it, right? C is going to be less or equal, and we do the division, it comes out 4.68. Doesn't make sense in terms of cases. So the question is, how many cases could we buy? We could buy 1, 2, 3, or 4 cases of vegetables for $50. Okay? So we could decide on any of those numbers as we are looking at that. We now want to look at our dividing by negative numbers. Then there's one more example, and then you're going to be working on your homework. So in order to solve this, I have negative 9 times y. What's the opposite of multiplying by negative 9? We're going to divide on both sides by negative 9. When I divide both sides by negative 9, y, oh, flip it. Remember, this is where we got to do that flip. It was less or equal, it's now greater or equal, and we should get an answer of negative 7. You definitely want to graph and check in both cases. So what does our graph look like? Well, at negative 7, I'm going to put my other numbers. I'm going to put negative 6, I'm going to put negative 8, and I'm going to have a closed circle because it includes negative 7 as part of my solution and everything larger. Now when I do the check, the easiest number to ever do a check of is 0. So if 0 is part of your solution, use that. So if x equals 0, is it true that negative 9 times 0 is less or equal to 63? That's the question we're trying to figure out. Well, when you multiply here, you get 0. Is that less or equal to 63? Yes, it checks. This is my solution. This is my graph. This is the check. You want to do this one now in class, and then the sub will check yours to see how you did, and hopefully the assignment makes sense. What you are going to do in a few minutes is the sub is going to pause this video, and then you'll see your quiz. This is the quiz. You will do this on a half sheet of paper. Answer questions 1, 2, and 3. Solve the inequality in graph. Number 2, solve this inequality in graph. And number 3, what are the solutions to this inequality? So you're going to leave your answer as both an inequality and then graph it. Please make sure you put your name on your paper and hope this went well. Thanks.